Plus, after you're in cab, then that means they want you to do the front and under the hood. So what you're going to do, just like you did with the back, there's going to be a lot of stuff you're going to repeat. So at the top we have 3 amber clearance lights. We have 2 red school lights, 2 amber school lights. I have 4 combination lights. Do exactly as I do. Touch everything except under the hood. Touch nothing. Okay? They are amber in color. I have 2 headlights and I-beams. They are clear in color. All of my lights are properly secure, not cracked or damaged. They're all in good working order as I demonstrated already. We're going to talk about our school signs. Not peeling, it's legible. The windshield's not cracked or damaged, has a good rubber seal, was crack rating 1 inch, take the bus out of service. The only sticker we want is that inspection sticker. Any other stickers are illegal. Talk about our windshield wipers. As I demonstrated earlier, they leave no streaks, they're properly mounted secure, they have flush of glass, and they have good rubber. We're going to talk about our mirror brackets. All your mirror brackets in the morning before you go out on the road, please grab them. Somebody may hit your bus and not tell you. And you go out and your mirror falls off. Okay, all my mirror brackets are properly mounted and secure. Not missing any nuts and bolts. All the mirrors are properly mounted secure. There's no damage, and they are all adjusted to my personal view. My hood is also properly mounted and secure with the hood latches. Not missing any nuts and bolts. None of the rubber is dry rotted. Now we're going to talk about the grill. There's no debris behind the grill. My grill is properly mounted secure, not missing any nuts and bolts. Drop down to our bumper. It's properly mounted secure to the frame of the bus, not missing any nuts and bolts, not bent or hanging. We're going to talk about our crossing gate. Has good tension, and it's properly mounted and secure in good working order as we demonstrated earlier. The license plate does match the license plate in the back. And it is up to date, properly mounted and secure. So you need to take a step back before you go anywhere with your bus. Make sure your bus is sitting level. If it's not sitting level, and you see it leaning right or left, it can indicate that there's a tire issue or a suspension issue. Make sure there's no puddles under your bus. And also make sure that there's no wires hanging underneath your bus. So now we're going to go under the hood of the bus. Okay, so under the hood of the bus, we're going to talk about our reservoirs right now. So I have my brake reservoir, I have my power steering reservoir, coolant, and windshield is on the other side. Look at the reservoirs, they're properly mounted secure, they are not leaking. The caps are in place on the brake, caps are in place as well on the power steering. They should all be at its max level. You can read them from outside of the container. All the hoses are properly mounted secure with their clamps. They're not leaking. All the wire connections, no exposed wiring or illegal tape. So the power steering hoses, they go to the power steering pump, which is gear driven. That's properly mounted and secure. So here we have our transmission dipstick. On the other side, you're going to see the oil dipstick. Transmission, the engine needs to be running. I'd pull that out, wipe it clean, reinsert it, check it again. You do not perform this. You just tell them what you would do. Put it back in. Make sure it's at its max level. If I needed to add fluid, we add it through the tube. So now we're going to go to our steering shaft. Our steering shaft, just like the drive shaft, is straight. It's not bent. No debris. The universal joints, they are all properly greased. Not missing any nuts and bolts. It goes down to our steering box. Our steering box is properly mounted secure to the frame. So you're going to talk about the frame just like you did on the other side of the bus. That there should be no illegal welds, no holes, only factory holes, and no cracks. If it had any of these, it would weaken my frame. So the box isn't missing any nuts or bolts. Connected to the box is my pitman arm. Just think of your armpit. If you can't remember the name, it's got its retaining nut holding it on. That's this big one right here. Down below we have a castle nut and cotter pin. Pitman arm is properly mounted secure to our drag link. That drag link down here is also properly mounted secure with a castle nut and cotter pin to our steering knuckle. You have upper and lower. Okay, the lower steering knuckle is properly mounted secure to our tie rod, which goes from one end to the other. Not missing any nuts and bolts. All of my steering linkage is properly mounted and secure. None of it is loose. We're going to go into our suspension and talk about it just like we did at the side of the bus. We have leaf springs and shock absorber. My leaf springs are properly mounted secure to the hanger mounts, which are mounted to the frame, not missing any nuts and bolts. The leaf springs are also properly mounted secure with 2 U-bolts to the axle of the bus. My axle is straight, it's not bent, it's not off to the side. The leaf springs are also not damaged or missing. So now we're going to go into our brakes. Our shock absorber. Properly mounted secure to the frame and to the axle. It's not damaged or leaking. So now we're talking about our ABS line. The thin one here is our ABS line. It is a wire sensor. It goes to my brake rotor. That wire should not have any exposed wiring, no illegal tape. It's also properly mounted and secure to the rotor. The rotor should be smooth, no oil, no grease, no grooves, no rust spot, nice and smooth, or metal shavings, no oil or grease. That's in the book. I said that twice. So then now the big one here, this big line, that's our hydraulic line. That goes to our brake caliper. That should have no cuts, bubbles, abrasions, no leaks. The caliper should not be leaking. Inside the caliper is our 2 brake pads. Should have no less than 1/4 inch thickness. They are also properly mounted and secure. So we're going to come to this steering tire. This is our steer tire. The steer tire should have 4 30-seconds tread depth. On this tire, we actually have little built-in gauges, but we would check this with a gauge, tire thread depth gauge. Okay, these are evenly worn. They cannot be recapped. They cannot be mismatched. Inner and outer walls should have no cuts, bubbles, or abrasions. Properly beaded to our rim. Again, the rim, just like the frame, should have no cracks, no illegal welds, no holes, only the factory holes, and it should not be bent. It's also properly mounted secure with our lug nuts. No rust trails or shiny spots. If we have rust trails or shiny spots, that tells us we have a loose lug nut. Okay, this is not an axle seal. This is a hub seal. It's properly mounted secure. It is not leaking, not missing any nuts and bolts. We do have our valve stem here, which we will check our inflation with a tire pressure gauge. Valve stem straight. It's not leaking. Cap is in place. Correct inflation is 115 PSI. So now we're going to walk around to the other side. We check the other side just like we did this side, with the exception of a few different things. Here's our coolant reservoir. It's at its max level. Again, hoses not leaking. None of the hoses underneath this hood or wire connections show any exposed wiring or illegal tape covering that exposed wiring. We would fill through the top. Same thing with our windshield fluid. We would fill that through the top. Again, hoses and wires, just like everything else, probably manually secure. Over here we have our alternator, which is belt driven with a serpentine belt. Should have no less or no more than 3/4 inches of play. Way down underneath there is our water pump. It's not leaking, so when we check the front of the bus, we didn't see anything leaking. That's also belt driven. Up here we have our turbo exhaust and intake. There's no carbon, which would indicate a leak. It's properly mounted secure. All its clamps are in place, as well as all the clamps on all of my hoses are in place. Here we have our oil dipstick. The engine needs to be off. Pull it out, wipe it clean, reinsert it, check it, make sure that it's at max level. If we needed to add it, we add it through the cap at the top of the engine. Over here we have our air cleaner, which is properly mounted secure. It is in the green. I'll make sure it's green. And then that would be it. You could talk about your fan blades, that they're all present, none of the cracked or damaged, and your radiator is not leaking. Okay, back with the headlight assembly, they don't care because you already talked about it. That concludes underneath the hood of the bus.